Happy Wednesday night and welcome to A Look on the Plus Side. This is the show where we go deep into the Disney Plus catalog, Hulu, some other things, and we give a review of a movie or a TV show. And tonight we're talking about the 1967 animated feature, Disney's The Jungle Book. If you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel. We'd love to have you. It helps us out a lot if you do. It's free. It doesn't cost you nothing. Subscribe to this Park Adventurers Club. You can find us at parkadventurersclub.com. And, of course, give us a like as it helps people to find us. And I say us. Who's us? Well, we got this lady right here. It's Stephanie. What's going on?
Hi, Rob. What you want to do?
You know what's so funny? That is so funny is as I was watching this movie, I was getting to that vulture scene. I thought, wouldn't it be funny if we started off as like, hey, Stephanie, what do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? And we did that bit. And then I thought, no, that'd be a little cheesy. And here you come out of the gate with it. We didn't even talk about it. So like minds, I guess, on that one. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you for always being on the show. You were on the very first Look on the Plus Side. You always bring some great insights. And so you jumped into the chat when I was like, what are we going to talk about next? And you were like, Jungle Book. And so I don't think there was any hesitation between the two of us about which Jungle Book we were going to talk about. We've never talked about this one. This is the Walt Disney animated full-length feature, The Jungle Book from 1967. Tell me why you chose this one. That's my big question all the time. Tell me why you chose this one.
Because as a kid, I just remember putting in that VHS tape and watching it on repeat. And I remember growing up with my brothers and they loved it too. And it's just a fun story. It's not very well adapted from the book. Let's just say that. It doesn't really hold to that, but it is a great characters, very iconic. Let's get our drinks ready because it is a very iconic movie.
Okay. For those of you who don't know, we started a tradition a bunch of times that we said iconic so much that we were like, we're going to drink every time we say iconic. So it's a thing. But that doesn't count because I was just explaining it. So that's not a thing. It's funny you should say that because I was ready to kind of pounce on that when you were like, well, the story. And I was like, it's not really Rudyard Kipling's like The Jungle Book. It's not the original Jungle Book. And in doing some research, as we do when we're talking about this, we don't usually just go, let's just talk about a movie. We actually do some research. One of the things that we found, or that I found, and I'm sure you saw it too, is that this was not the original treatment that they did for this. And in a world with like where we see rewrites for Elio and we see rewrites for The Good Dinosaur, it usually doesn't end out doing pretty well when they have this many rewrites. But they had an original concept that was darker tones, more in line with the original text of The Jungle Book. And Walt had some not box office success with The Sword and the Stone. And he was like, you know what, I've been kind of away. I've been not hands-on as I have been in the past with my movies because he'd been opening up Disneyland and the World's Fair and all these other things that were happening. And so he decided to be more involved with this one. Kind of like had a creative difference with the director at the time who left, and he just kind of took over. And he said to everybody, hey, have you read The Jungle Book? And in Richard Sherman and all these other people who've told these stories we were like, no, we haven't, not in a long time. He's like, good, don't, because we're like, so it's so loosely based on this, right?
Yes. Character names, maybe it's kind of the only thing. Maybe in general, the concepts there. Obviously a kid who gets raised by wolves in the jungle, but yeah, the story is all Walt, and I think that's another reason why I love it, to be honest.
Yeah, and it's apparently the original text, which Stephanie, I don't read a lot. So the original text was very much episodic as opposed to one straight storyline. And they're like, where are we going to approach this from? What's the story? And it's basically Mowgli running through vignettes on his way to get to the Man Village. So I didn't know any of this at the time, and you don't really think about that when you're a kid. You're like, hey, it's a movie. So let's start here with this new feature that we hope that you guys enjoy called the stat board, because I run a lot of numbers and I just feel like it's better to see them all at once. So the runtime for this is 1 hour and 21 minutes, which, Stephanie, as soon as I see 1 hour and 21, I'm like, yes, I am in for this, as opposed to when you and I watched the entire first season of Once Upon a Time. The
Yes.
release date of this was October 18th, 1967. That's when it premiered at Grauman's Chinese Theater. It actually hit wide in December, but it was October 18th, 1967. It rated G. The box office was 378 million, and I think that's cumulative. I don't think that's exactly what it made, and that's obviously worldwide, but I think that's over multiple releases. And the original budget was $4 million, mere chump change in the movie business. And this is a Disney product, and we put the company on there because Disney has purchased a lot of companies over the years, Pixar and Henson and all these others that we want to make sure we know where the source material was. But this was an original Disney movie. Apparently did really well, and then I think that they paired it with another movie, double features. Like, I remember vaguely double features as a kid. They don't do those anymore. Actually, the last time I think I saw a double feature, I think they had kind of brought it around again, and I saw Hercules and George of the Jungle together.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, how about
That's
that?
interesting
How about them
combo.
apples? Yeah. But you know what? Like you, I really like this movie. I think it has a cool factor that a lot of the everybody has a favorite nostalgic Disney movie, I feel like. And for me, it varies. But like Fox and the Hound is that for me, I think. That's that
Yes.
nostalgic movie for me. But this one's a cool movie. Some of them are a little cheeseball. This one's, I feel like, a pretty cool movie. Like, I don't think you would get any flack for this being a fan of this. But I have the DVD. This was the 40th anniversary DVD here. It has extra features on it, including Meet the Long Lost Character. There was a rhino. I don't know if you saw that
Oh,
in your story. And I have this, which is a Switch game
yes.
that is the Jungle Book, Aladdin, and Lion King all in one Switch game. Which, by the way, I love that they do this, but this is ridiculous. So here's the Switch game. Here's the big case, and you open it up, and there's the game right
Tiny.
there. Like, this is
Yes.
this is crazy, but I am all here for it. So I don't have any popcorn buckets. I didn't have a shirt somewhere in my Adventurers Club shirt,
Oh,
but I do love like the overall gist of this movie, and it's surprising that we haven't reviewed it at this point. And one of the things I think is endearing, and again, you probably already know this in your research, is that this was the last film that Walt really produced, put hands on, told the
yes.
story of, and there was some making of stuff on Disney Plus, which I always appreciate when they do, with
Mhm.
Diane Disney Miller talking about how, what a great storyteller her dad was. He would drive them to school and tell stories and kind of workshop stuff that he was doing at the studios. And that they basically said that Walt brought them in and kind of like repitched how this movie was going to play out once they restructured it. I would love if more of that existed. Like, if they have
Yes.
recordings of that, please release them. Like, that would
Hmm.
be a great thing to hear Uncle Walt telling these stories. But that makes it more special knowing that. I mean, that's not why I loved it as a kid. I'm sure that's not why you loved it, but it does make it more special, right?
100% it does. And it really shows his personality. He was the one that said, I don't really care about the plot, believe it or not. He said, I don't care about the plot. I care about the characters and I care about their entertainment value. And he really wanted the characters to shine. And they do. And I watched a documentary you're talking about with some of the animators and behind the scenes, and they were saying, we don't start at the beginning. He just works off an outline. We don't actually have anything written, and we go storyboard it because Walt wanted to see it in the sketch form. And they start from one of the middle scenes, and then where all the characters are, and they develop those characters and their personalities, and then they work out from there. And I thought that was really interesting because movies aren't filmed in necessarily chronological order, but this is the same kind of thing. They didn't work in that way either. So, and I do think that that's probably why they did so well, unfortunately so, in the theater at the time, because he had just passed and everybody was like, what, this is like a posthumously given to us, and we're gonna go and watch this film, that the last film that Walt ever did and had hands on, like you're saying. And I think it maybe even gave the animators more confidence that hey, we can do this without Walt.
Yeah, no, I agree. And again, surprising to me that this is a movie that was in one direction. I mean, there are cases where this works. I think Emperor's New Groove works. That was one where they did almost the exact same thing. It was a darker, more serious movie. Kingdom of the Sun, I believe, was the name of it. And then, Sting wrote all this music, and it was this like very specific thing. And they're like, nah, let's make it this goofball thing, and just
So good.
completely, change the way that it worked. And I love that movie. So I want to start off by talking about the director of this movie, Wolfgang Reitherman, who they called Wolfie,
Yeah.
or Wooly. Well, they called him Wooly because when they were first talking about him, Richard Sherman was talking about him, I thought he was calling him Willie, and then I was
Oh
thinking
no.
of Alf and Hey Willie, and it was a whole thing. But he directed a lot of Disney, or was an animator on Disney. But as far as the director's chair, he did around this same time the Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, because he did all of the little pieces of Winnie the Pooh, like Blustery Day, that ended up being the Many Adventures. He did Robin Hood, which you and I have talked about Robin Hood before.
Yep.
He did the Aristocats. He did the Jungle Book. He did the Sword and the Stone. He did 101 Dalmatians. And so the funny part about that, though, is how much, and we see this called out online all the time, and I think we may have talked about it during Robin Hood. You know where I'm going with this, right?
Hmm.
Is that he was, I think, famous for reusing animation. I
Reuse.
mean, there are all these videos that are online, and I'm going to show a little bit of one here, that where they show him, like, the choreography of the scene is
Yes.
exactly the same, even if, like, and I don't want to get flagged here, but even if it's not exactly the same, like this one here where the
Oh,
dogs are
it
there and
is.
he just wipes
Hmm.
it off, like exactly the same. So I got to imagine that some of this stuff saved them a ton of time, a ton of money in doing
Yes.
things. But the ones that seem the most similar are Robin Hood and the Jungle Book.
The dance, of course. Well, did you know that they reused animation within the same movie? Like
Yes.
Bagheera, yeah, he's walking along a branch and he lays down and puts his head on his paws. He does that multiple times. There are multiple instances where they take the exact same animation and then just change the background. But it works. And as a child, and even watching it back today, I didn't really pay much attention to that. It flows and it feels natural, and I didn't really mind that, to be honest.
Yeah, I was seeing if I could pull this up. The exact thing that you're talking about, I did see that before. The stuff with Bagheera where he's like he leaps up and the animation's exactly the same. This one's just the same thing turned
Yes,
backwards.
exactly.
But yeah, there's a lot of that. And is it smart? Like we see it all the time. Like I mean, you do see it but it's usually in lesser things than a Disney movie. Usually you're seeing it in, like the Toon Disney stuff that they used to do, but I see it a lot in Disney. When I look back at some of the things, like we did a review, Patrick and I did, of Herbie, and I think of Herbie Rides Again. And in
Hmm.
doing that, there was footage of like the crowd, and they would go back to the crowd, and it's the same crowd shot that they're reusing over and over again. So but I just thought it was interesting that most of this is like Wolfgang, like, plagiarizing his own papers, because they're all his movies, and they're all movies we love, but they're also some of them in that dark time of Walt was gone, what do we do now, the Aristocats and Robin Hood, and it all changed by the time they got to, like, I had mentioned Fox and the Hound, Black Cauldron, those kind of things. But these movies, they're just like so similar when you go through it, and I think a lot of people feel like, we gotcha, and they were like, we were just doing it. Like, I don't know that they were
Yeah,
really trying to, like, pull the wool. They were just trying to be efficient in making these movies, getting them out as quickly
exactly.
as possible. And I'm with you. I don't mind. I almost find it more entertaining than anything. But there's this one in particular, because he did Christopher Robin and Mowgli the same way, walking up the hill. That one hits me more because he cast his son
Yes.
as Mowgli and as Christopher Robin.
Yes.
Why
Well,
not?
so
Like, keep it in the
The
family.
Chris Well, that's true, but the Christopher Robin, actually, there was an original actor for the Christopher Robin, and he was, I think they said 11 when they cast him, and by the time, or maybe, excuse me, it was Mowgli. So by
It
the
was,
time
yeah.
that the movie actually got made, his voice had changed. So he went back to his son, who had been Christopher Robin, like you said, and he said, "Okay, you're going to be Mowgli now," because they needed somebody that was going to be more consistent with his tone of and cadence of voice and everything. So
Yep. So while we're on that, so we talked about the director. Let's talk about the cast. Is that Phil Harris was Baloo, and the funny
yes.
thing about again looking into it is that this was a superstar at the time. This was a known actor at the time, and so what was interesting to me is because all of the people who came before, when we look at older movies that you and I have talked about, whether it's Cinderella or Snow White or whatever, when we look back at these movies, all of those people seem famous to me because they're Disney legends, and yet they were not famous. And we probably talked about this before too, is that a lot of those movies, they don't even include the cast in the credits. They're not even in there. If you
Right.
go back to some of the older ones, it just says all the way down uncredited, 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 because they were not famous people. And so this was a departure. 1967. This is the first time we have a departure where like we're casting famous people. The jazz performer Louis Prima as King Louie, and Sebastian Cabot and Phil Harris, Sterling Holloway. These were people who were famous at the time, and then of course Sterling Holloway also at the same time, Winnie the Pooh, and on. So it's interesting that like I never thought of it that way before. That this was the first time they had famous celebrities in these roles, and
Right.
now you can't really do an animated movie without having at least
Oh,
one celebrity in there, right?
usually a million, right? Think of Kung Fu Panda, like, or something to that effect. It's just everybody. It's a slew of different people, even if they have like one or two lines. And yes, I think that that's again another legacy that Walt has given us in the film industry to say, okay, you get more eyes on it if you have somebody that's famous and recognizable.
And back to Phil Harris, he was also Little John. So
Yes.
not only are you like copying the animation into Robin Hood, and we're also going to do a bear that is bigger
Yeah.
than everyone else and looks pretty much exactly like Baloo,
Exactly
only
the same.
brown,
Yes.
but you're going to use the same voice actor. And then, oh
Yep.
my gosh, we've got this other movie. It's called The Aristocats. Can you do Thomas O'Malley? Can you do that? Like so, like he was in like 1, 2, 3, same director, and same voice. I don't hate it. I mean, he's got a
No.
very unique voice, and it definitely has a good vibe to it. And again, in talking or looking through it, apparently they were having trouble casting Baloo, and Walt was at a benefit, and he heard Phil Harris talking. He's like, "Wait, that's him. That's Baloo. That's exactly the voice I want for this." They brought him in to do a screen test, and he like a voice test, and he didn't do well because he was trying to be a bear. And he's like,
Yeah.
then when they're like, just be yourself, like we want you to be Phil Harris as like just be you, and he did. And apparently, just like a lot of the stuff that was in the movie was even stuff that he improved, and it's just like that's you love to hear that kind of stuff. That's like the genie in Aladdin, like you love to hear that kind of stuff.
I think that is why this movie resonates, and it really, again, makes you feel, even though it's kind of a serious subject in some areas, and at the end it's kind of stressful because Shere Khan's trying to kill a kid, and that's like, how do you make that lighthearted? But it is like you see again the character development, you see the personality, not just of the character but of the actor coming through, and I think that's what really makes people like that iconic thing for them. I'm going to say that again.
Yeah, no, I get that, but so let's move over to Sterling Holloway.
Mhm.
Again, to me, he's gonna be in the same boat as any of these other folks that we've heard over and over again earlier in these movies. For me, because he's a famous voice actor, but I saw him on an episode of the black and white Superman. He was like I think a scientist or something like that. So he was an established actor. But he is Ka in this, which is unusual for him to be the bad guy. Like he's usually, and it's a bad
Yeah.
guy. It's like he's kind of silly, but he is a killer snake. But he's kind of silly.
Yeah.
Um,
He's doing what a python does, Rob.
Sure, sure, sure. That was another thing again in the some of the stuff with Richard Sherman. That they were saying that they brought the Sherman brothers in and said, "We want you to do the music for this, but we want you to take the edgy, dark parts of the movie and make them fun with music." And it's like, wait, what? You're going to take a
Yes.
dark part of the movie and make it fun? And so, if you think about like it was scary that Mowgli was kidnapped and taken to this monkey village, and yet there's a goofy song to go along with it. And then the same thing with this one where he's like, oh, okay, I'm gonna kill you probably, but let me just sing you this goofy little song,
Go to sleep.
trust in
Well,
me.
fun
Yeah.
fact about this song that I heard on this documentary is that it actually was originally written for Mary Poppins.
Really.
It was, yes. And it was entitled The Land of Sand, and it never
Hmm.
got put into the movie. So they just took the same melody, changed the lyrics, and it became Trust in Me.
Well, I don't know if I got to tell you that I feel like this is where the live action one ruined it for me because when I'm hearing him sing it, I'm thinking of Scarlett Johansson doing hers from, and no shade on her, but it just didn't fit. That was so weird that in the that's one of the things when they do the live action movies. Sometimes they go with the music from the
Right.
original, like Beauty and the Beast did, and they add some more. And sometimes they stay away from it, like Mulan did, where it's like the stuff is just in the and I think that the Cinderella we saw was the same thing. Those
It was.
songs were just in the end credits. They were not
Yes.
in the movie. So it's interesting the take that they do on that. But in the live action version, they did Bare Necessities with Bill Murray, and they did Trust in Me. But I don't think they did the I Want to Be Like You. Right? I don't think they did that one.
I don't think they did.
Yeah. So anyway, it's fine. But when I hear that when I hear that song, I hear her kind of like singing it. Um,
Oh, no. I'm always going to default back to the 1967 animated one.
I know when we were on the Park Adventurers Club, I think last this past Sunday night, and we were talking. I saw you in chat, and we were talking about the fact we were doing this tonight, and somebody was like, "Oh, which version?" And you're like, "The real one, like the original." Like we're not messing around here.
The only one,
We're doing
guys.
which is the opposite of what happened with me and Shannon because I thought we were going to do the animated 101 Dalmatians, and I was like, "Oh, we're not doing that trash Glenn Close one," and she's like, "No, that's the one I want to do." Oh, sorry,
Well,
awkward.
it is a pretty good one.
Yeah, no, it was better than I remembered it. Especially her level of commitment. Go back and watch that one. It's a
Right.
lot of fun. Going through the cast again, Verna Felton. I was like, what? Like her resume. So she is Winifred and I don't think she's credited as Winifred the elephant in this one.
Elephant.
She's like the Colonel Hothy's wife, I
Wife.
guess.
Yeah.
But when I'm watching this and I'm like, I didn't know that she had been in so much stuff. And so she was the voice in, she was the fairy godmother in the
Oh,
Cinderella.
yes. Oh,
And I was
man. I
like,
didn't realize that.
yeah. So
Iconic.
I was like, wait a minute. In Alice in Wonderland, she was the Queen of Hearts,
Mm,
which fairy godmother, Queen of Hearts, like big time roles to just be bumped down to Winifred, the elephant wife in that in this movie. She in Lady and the Tramp, she was Aunt Sarah. I guess that's the one that brought
oh,
the cats.
yes.
As Sleeping Beauty, she was Flora. I mean, these are
Oh,
like
yes. Oh, my
yeah, these are
gosh. Yeah,
big
big
deal
role.
things. And she was in a bunch of other stuff, The Flintstones, My Three Sons, Dennis the Menace. But this was the last thing she did. And she actually passed away, I think, she like within days of when Walt passed away in 1966.
Wow.
She passed away in December of 1966, December 14th. And, and so again, the movie didn't come out until the following year, 1967. So this was literally the last thing that she did. But I
Wow.
just looking back, she was definitely a star, but she was definitely Disney royalty, through and through.
100%. Yeah.
Clint Howard was in this, which is so funny to me because Ron Howard wasn't directing. I feel like that's when Clint Howard gets work is when Ron Howard is directing. But as a kid, he was the baby elephant again, just listed as elephant voice.
I love
He
that though.
wasn't, yeah. But I mean, he's just such a unique individual. Uh, Clint Howard, you see him in Apollo 13. You see him just in these little. He was in Solo because Ron directed it. It's almost like just we were talking about like Wooly putting his son in this in his movies. That's every Ron Howard movie. Like it's like, I'll bring my brother in, we'll put him in here. But he was in a ton of Ron Howard stuff. But I just thought that was funny, like that he was in this. So Phil Harris, Sebastian Cabot, big deal. Louis Prima, Bruce Reitherman, George Sanders was Shere Khan. That song where the vultures are singing "That's What Friends Are For."
Oh man, so good.
Do you think of Happily Ever After all the time when you hear that? Because like when they do "That's What," like, and the building sings at that point, because I hear it and I'm like, and it goes right out of that back into Friend Like Me. Because I listen to Happily music way too much. But when the building sings that part, they're singing Shere Khan's part. And my wife, I
Yes.
think when we were there at Disney the last time, she's like, "What is that from something?" I was like, "Yeah, like that's how it is in the Jungle Book." But those four vultures were supposed to, and again, you and I have both done research, were supposed to have been the Beatles. And John
Right.
was like, "I'm not doing animation."
Right. But wouldn't that have been grand if they had? And they found people from Liverpool anyway, so they got the right kind of accent, so it's okay. And they were going to do a kind of a rock sort of upbeat song that they sang, and instead Walt said, "I don't like this. I think it will date the movie. It will date the film. So let's make it." And the Sherman Brothers turned it into the barbershop quartet that they do. So I thought that was interesting because there's other parts of this movie that really date the film already, and I'm like, you could have gone with it, the Beatles
You
rock,
didn't
and
know.
it'd been
They didn't
fine.
know. They didn't know.
They didn't
But
know.
yeah, that scene I can't even tell you. I mean, you have a family. You know this thing when you're like, what are we going to do for dinner? I don't know. What do you want to do for dinner? I don't know. What do you want to do for dinner? This scene with the vultures constantly, it lives rent free in my head when those things happen because it's just like, what do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? I don't know. Like that's my life in so many occasions.
Yes.
So I love that scene. But when Shere Khan comes in and sings "That's What Friends Are For," it takes me back to Happily Ever After. So again, amazing cast for the time, and a departure for Disney in the fact that they were doing celebrity voices. And I don't know like the thought process about that in the past for him because he was a movie maker and always wanted to do live action and got into live action. So you would think that he would have wanted to integrate his characters more like Fred McMurray and get him in there, or Dean Jones and have them do stuff, or Kurt Russell did Fox and Hound eventually, but after Walt's death. But
I think Walt was an actor himself, and I think that he was so about the character. And if you had, Fred doing something else over here in the live action world, he didn't feel like he needed to, create a character, or it would take away from the individual animated character to have him come in that and do that. So I think that that's where he came from. And he literally took every movie individually and said, this is who I want for this role. And I think that's what makes it great.
yeah, this is unrelated to the movie itself, but because we do this and talk about Disney Plus, I wanted to point this out. I don't know if you've noticed this or not when you went to look for this movie. Is they've changed this. So when you
Yes.
click on the square, let's start at the beginning here. When you click on the square for Disney and you go here, they've got these collections and they've divided it up into, this is stuff for the Disney Channel and Disney parks, and so they've got this like subgenre here of things. And then you go to Disney Animation. I do love that they break it down by the years. So here's the 50s to the 70s. That's where this one lives. 30s to 40s. Everything else is like one like decade, except for the 50s through the 70s, because they were busy doing some other stuff at the time. So here's the lineup. It was 101 Dalmatians, Sword in the Stone, Jungle Book, Aristocats, Robin Hood, and then Winnie the Pooh, I think, was the next one, and then the Rescuers. So yeah,
I
I
actually
think
really love that.
the layout of the circles, or the by the years, or both.
By the year, well, both, honestly, because I felt like a lot of times the home screens looks very jumbly. So I like anything that kind of categorizes it better for me. But I do like that they put it out there chronologically.
And then the other thing that it immediately jumped out to me is that the things that it recommends, obviously it recommends the live action. I'm going to have to come back so you can see the finger quotes live action, because so much of it is animated. It's really more of a hybrid than anything else. The live action Jungle Book, Jungle Book 2, the Jungle Book Mowgli story, which I have never seen, but I'm noticing the 1994 Jason Scott Lee one has been removed from Disney Plus.
Ah, that's true.
I don't know why. I mean, and he's making it big again in Lilo and Stitch, because he was David, the animated version. He's live action he's in the live action as the luau owner, manager. So
That's right.
I don't know why they pulled it. But the other thing that's interesting about that is, I think, if I'm not mistaken, that was the first live action adaptation of a Disney classic, was the 1994
But you're right.
Jungle Book. So, yeah, and people are probably like, "What? Why did you do that? You didn't need to do that." But maybe people love that one. I don't know. So yeah. So we talked about the kind of the precursor of what was happening at the time, and we talked about the cast. I don't want to talk about the music yet, but I definitely need to talk about the music. But I do want to talk about the fact that this movie starts like a lot of my favorite Disney movies does. And it starts with the book, and then we're also hearing narration from Sebastian Cabot as Bagheera. So, and they go through, and it says it's inspired by the Rudyard Kipling Mowgli stories. So it's not the Jungle Book that it's inspired by. It's inspired by the Mowgli stories. And then obviously but this was I feel like, even though this was the 60s, I feel like we're already feeling 70s Disney in this animation, like, right? Like in the animation, in the fonts, it's feeling 70s Disney, I feel like, a little bit. So and they credit Mowgli as Mowgli, in parentheses, the man cub.
Of course. Because sometimes they don't use his name. Sometimes they just say the man cub. So you don't want to be confused.
Well, all of them are kind of like that. Like,
right.
Like Shere Khan, the tiger. Ka, the snake. Right? Like, I think that's pretty interesting. And I've struggled all my life with whether it was Colonel Hattie or Colonel Hathy, because it's a TH. And so therefore I was like, it seems like it's Hathy, but it's also Hindi. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Is it
That's
a hard,
good question.
like
I just assumed it was Hathy, but
I went to Google for this, and there's a pronunciation video, and on the pronunciation video, you still can't tell. It's like, is that a hard T, or are they just doing the TH? I don't know. So I'm just going to go ahead and if I'm wrong for the rest of this show, and call him Colonel Hathy, because it feels like it should be. By the way, do you know that what Hathy, the Hathy is the Hindi word for elephant? Did you know that?
No, that's great. Of course it
That's
is.
not even a trivia question, Stephanie. That's a freebie. I'm just giving you that one.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. So this brings me to my first question for you, because this is like, I ask these questions because they don't make sense to me. You don't have to have an answer for this. What language does Mowgli speak? Because we hear him as English, but then he should be Indian, because this is like from India. But then the bear and the panther, and they all speak English. Some of them are British, and some of them are not.
Correct.
Again,
Yes.
I'm going to let that go. but when he's talking to the wolves and he's talking to the vultures and he's talking to the tiger, when he gets to like the village, we don't really see him talking to the girl. So like, what language does he speak?
I think he speaks the universal animal language. They understand each other. But we are hearing it in our proper English or British whatever dialects. Well, I mean, England had rule over India until 1947. So why not have them have a British accent? You know, that makes sense to me.
Okay,
But yeah,
first of
I
all,
don't.
that's a great fact that I would not have expected you to pull. I should, because you're incredibly smart. But the second part is the part that where you went off about how like he speaks the universal language of animal sounds like a mom answer. What is that? What you
Well,
you
that's
just
what it
treat me like a
is.
child here, right? It's like you're gonna ask
I do think
play
that you make a
play
good
dumb
point though,
games, get
because
dumb prizes. That's how
there
that
you
works,
go.
right?
He doesn't speak to the girl. The girl doesn't speak to him either, though. I mean, she kind of lures him with the, the suggestive looks and things like that. But he's interested because he sees somebody that looks like him and follows her, and he can communicate via, his body language and what have you. So I think that they are understanding each other, and we are just brought in to, listen to that.
Yeah. Um, can I ask another question?
Hmm.
Can I pet that dog? I want to pet that dog. Can I pet that
So
dog?
cute.
I want to pet that dog.
The wolf pups are adorable too.
Yeah, and and as I'm looking for trivia questions to ask you, which we'll do in a minute, I was looking at the blanket, and I was going to ask you what color the blanket was in Mowgli's basket, but
Of
it
course you
keeps
will.
changing colors. Sometimes it's white, and sometimes it's a pale blue, and sometimes it's a
Blue.
bright blue, and like I'm like I can't ask that question because I can't answer that question. I don't know. Um, so yeah, definitely
The
that. So to this point, Bagheera has been narrating and talking about how he found Mowgli and was going to leave him, but then he was like, "No, I can't do that." And then he takes him to the wolves because she had just had kids. What's another one? Is that how people like in the neighborhood treat you? They're like, "You got a bunch of kids. Let me just leave mine with you." Like,
At
what's a
this
few
point,
more?
what's a few more? Exactly.
Right, exactly. And so he does that, and then there's a wolf council where they're talking about the fact of we got to get rid of the man cub because Shere Khan's coming. This is my next question for you. It's like, do they know that Shere Khan is after the man cub? Because it's not clear to me. And again, I'm looking at this under a critical eye, not the eye of like a 6-year-old watching this for the first time. I'm looking at it as like, does this make sense? When they're meeting, they're like, "Well, Shere Khan's coming, and he's looking for the man cub, so we got to get him out of here, or else we're all going to be in trouble." But when we finally like see Shere Khan, and he's explaining, and Bagheera's explaining to Colonel Hathi that Mowgli's gone, and we need your help to find him. He's overhearing the whole thing. It makes it seem like at that moment, this is the first he's hearing or realizing that there's a man cub.
Yeah, I can see you're thinking that. I guess I never paid attention and just assumed that he knows about the man cub, or in that the animals believe that they Shere Khan hates man, and he will kill whatever he sees and kill them too because they're harboring him. So I think that that's what they're saying maybe, and then he says, "Oh, this is good. He's on his own now. He's not with anybody else. He's lost. So I
Yeah,
can track him and I can kill him."
yeah. Uh, While we're overthinking things, said David Lung, did the animals make Mowgli's shorts?
Right. Yeah. How did that
Because
happen?
there's that dude. That's a great question that I've never
It,
asked the question. I've never asked for because all of them are naked. Wouldn't he
well,
be naked? And the
he
orange does
should
not
be.
match anything that was in his basket.
I was just about to say if the blanket had been orange, or if his pants or whatever his diaper would have been blue, then it wouldn't have been an issue.
While we're overthinking things, oh, I feel called out, and yet I'm good with it. I'm fine. Yes,
Appreciate it.
thank you,
Yeah.
David. I appreciate you you calling attention to that one. Yeah. So anyway, that was another question that I had about that. The next question I have, again, I hope that you're ready for all these because these are not the trivia questions. This is just my own personal like. I don't know this is what exactly is a python's power of hypnotism? because I mean, they just look at you and you fall under a trance. Is that how that works? Because it seems to happen pretty easily and pretty
Apparently.
quickly. I don't
Kaleidoscope
know.
eyes or something. I don't know.
It's very 67 trippy. It really is. It's
Yes.
very like the color palette of that one is very interesting. You know, so yeah, then then come the elephants, and that's fun. But it's it's at this point that I'm seeing what they were talking about in the in the storyboarding of this is that it's not that it's vignettes. It's little
Yes.
pieces of here's this experience with the snake, and here's this experience with the wolves, and here's this experience with the elephants, and here's this experience with the bear, who
Hmm.
apparently was not supposed to be a big deal, but very similar to Robin Williams and the Genie. Phil Harris went ham, and they were
Took it.
like, "We we got to make him a bigger deal in this," and so, yeah, so that they did that. I mean, the elephant thing is cool, and it's it's definitely I'm gonna do it to you. It's iconic, like it is the whole march.
Hmm.
I feel like my sister did this to her daughter, is like made her march like this and probably referenced this movie.
So
Um,
some of the animators had been, and the Sherman brothers themselves were enlisted in the Army or the, Army Air Corps or whatever it was for World War II and beyond. And so they put that into the film. That's what this is. That's what I love about watching the behind the scenes documentaries too, because it just brings out more of those stories. And you're like, oh, that's why this is in the film, or that's why this is, you can see that relationship between like Bagheera and Baloo, and it was really because of the animators and their relationships with each other, which was pretty cool.
I really thought he was gonna lose the shorts here.
Brought you to that point and just let you teeter on the edge.
Yeah, it's like no, no, no. Okay, good, he's got it. Um, yeah, and yeah, as we're watching this, I think it's a beautiful movie, but it is not as beautiful to me as some of the early works. It feels like again,
Yes.
and we kind of talked about this. They recycled a lot of animation. They were more about the story in these eras than they were, I think, the quality of the animation. It's not bad animation, but like this is a beautiful scene, but there's not a
Hmm.
lot of them that are just like again in Sleeping Beauty it was
Oh,
they just said any piece of Sleeping Beauty, if you pause it, you're going to see something that is worthy of putting up on your wall. That to me is the
yes.
scene, but at the same time that's not common in here. His foot isn't super well defined, and I feel like this also started with kind of Wolfgang's reign, because I feel like all of this type of animation sort of started with Sword in the Stone, it feels like, or maybe
Absolutely. But
101
I will say
Dalmatians.
that they have quoted Walton saying that he really liked this style of animation too. And I don't know, I mean, like you said, they used it in like all those, movies that were after that, but he may have said, okay, that's enough. But I don't know. But that I see the same thing. Aristocats, exactly. Same thing there. 101 Dalmatians. It did have sort of a grainy effect to it. It wasn't, like you said, as well defined necessarily in some areas, or it looked like the lines were overlapping somewhat, and sometimes I don't. It just looked a little grainy to me.
Yeah. No, I agree. So there's a piece of it at the very end while we're talking about animation that I wanted to bring to your attention is as this camera backs away,
Oh,
it shakes. You see that?
yes. Oh my
Like it
gosh, yeah.
shakes. Is that on purpose? Like,
I don't know.
you know what I'm saying? Like, so it feels like the multiplane camera that we've heard
Uh-huh.
and so much about, and like they're pulling back, but it kind of shakes, and I don't know if it was that by design, or did somebody bump it and they're like, it's fine, it's for kids, nobody will notice. Because the
It's
rest of
yeah,
that
for
scene is
posterity.
so beautiful because it not only do they go from that, and it does have a little bit of that grainy that you were talking about when it starts out, but
Mhm.
not only does it go from as it backs away, the colors change, but again as it goes
Mhm.
through here, there's that grainy part, and then they start to
Yep.
move, and right there it's just
Mhm.
shaky, like
Yeah,
they
that's a good point.
but it's beautiful, the levels, and then when they get to the end the sky changes color, and I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, okay, that's a really nice quality touch there. And it's like,
Mhm.
like right here, see how it
Yes.
just kind of
Oh,
darkens a little
it's
bit.
beautiful. Mhm.
Yeah, It's so well done, and yet at the same time, there are pieces of it that look like not really all that well done, and then there are pieces of it that look like they're just masterpieces. And so that's
Yeah.
why, like, when we put this in a bucket of reviewing it, we're talking about the different pieces, cast, music, animation. I don't know what to think because you're right. It is there's something charming and very specific about it, but
Uh-huh.
at the same time, quality wise, is it there?
I don't know. I feel like I can overlook that. I
Okay,
feel like I like it enough that if
noted.
the story carries, I can overlook.
Noted. I want to talk about the music next, and except before we do, I want to thank everybody who's watching. You guys are awesome. I appreciate you guys tuning in, and this is one of our favorite shows to do is a look on the plus side. We also do a show on Sunday nights. It's called the Park Adventurers Club, where we talk about Disney parks, and then we also do Friday night. We do a whole bunch of different programming, including a show that Stephanie does called Castaways, one that Shannon does called Happiest Days. So tune in Monday or Sunday, Wednesday, and Fridays for new content, but we've got all kinds of stuff dropping all the time at parkadventuresclub.com. But Stephanie, I'm going to kind of sidetrack here and ask you a few trivia questions because you picked this movie, so obviously you know it inside and out. You burned a hole in the VHS when you were watching it as a kid. So here are some of the questions that I have for you, and I'm sure they'll be super easy. So, and please, if you're watching this live in the chat, feel free to shout out the answers in the chat. Stephanie will not cheat and look, but we can just hear that you guys know what's going on, and we'll give you the credit there. So here's the first question. When Bagheera and again, this is going to be simple. It's going to be simple. When Bagheera finds Mowgli and he takes him to the wolf village, then we fast forward to him. How old is he when we fast forward to Mowgli?
Okay. Bagheera says it had been 10 rainy seasons
Yeah.
that happened. So maybe he's 10, maybe he's 11, but because he was an infant when he found him. So somewhere
No, I'll
around
give
there.
you 10. I'll give you 10. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So, yeah, because 10 times the rain had come and gone is what he said. So, like I said, I think that's pretty easy. How many wolf cubs were there in the beginning?
3.
6.
Crap. Sorry.
There were the 3 on the rocks that were wagging their tails, but if you watch when she's
Oh,
walking back into the cave with the basket, there are 6, which
ugh.
shocks me because I was like, where were they headed out there? Um, the wolves have decided that they're going to call a meeting and they're going to get rid of the man cub. That it's time for him to go. They can't protect him. Shere Khan's coming. Where do they hold this meeting?
Where do they hold it? Um, okay, I remember Bagheera was like in a tree or something. So were they like on a rock somewhere?
What's
On
that
a
rock
rock?
called?
Oh, I don't know.
Council Rock. I thought that was funny. I thought that was
Shoot!
funny. It's Council Rock. Yeah.
Should have known it.
I mean, yeah. What award did Colonel Hathy win from the war?
Oh, I knew you were going to ask me that, and I forgot to write it down. I don't
You did
remember.
not know I was going to ask you that question.
It's obscure. What did he say?
The Victoria's
I don't
Cross.
remember. Victorious. Okay.
Victoria's Cross. The Victoria's Cross. So,
Okay.
I mean, yeah, I thought I could have made that a little bit more confusing, but, I figured I would just leave that there. So, um, this one seems almost maybe. All right, I'm not gonna ask you that one. Never mind.
Oh no.
This was yeah. No, it's fine. It's fine. I was just trying to see if. All right, I'm gonna ask you anyway. You don't have to know this because it's not about this movie. But Sterling Holloway, he did the voice of Kaa. He was the voice of Winnie the Pooh. Can you name another Disney voice that he did?
I can actually. The stork in Dumbo.
Okay, nice. I was thinking you would have gone the Aristocats and Roquefort,
Well, that would be
but
another one. Yes, that's true.
yeah,
Hmm.
and also the Cheshire Cat.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So I mean, he did a lot of stuff, but in Ben and Me, he was Amos the mouse.
Hmm.
So
Totally
I
hear
just
that.
wondered if there was another thing that you could do, but yeah, totally iconic.
Iconic.
Yeah. All right. So I think did I ask you all those questions? One, two, three, four, five. Yeah, I think I asked you all the questions. The only other question I was going to ask you is the elephants as a group. What are they called? Because I feel like this is in Disney lore. There's a caveat on this one, so that's why I wanted to see if you
Mm,
knew what they were called. This is a freebie.
not not coming to mind.
The Jungle Patrol.
Oh, yes. Okay.
But here's the curveball in this is that when Bagheera first sees them, he says, "Here comes the Dawn Patrol." But that's supposed to be
Ah,
them being on patrol in the dawn, because then later he
mhm.
refers to them as the Jungle
Evening.
Patrol. So, yeah,
Okay.
there you go.
Okay.
Fire Chief says 2 for 6. I think you got 2 for 6. I think
Thank you
it's
for keeping score.
yeah, always. All right, and thank you for playing. I appreciate you having a like putting up with me asking you those questions. So let's move on and talk about the music, because the Sherman Brothers. We need to do The Boys. I don't know if you and I need to do that, but we've never reviewed The
Yeah.
Boys. And The Boys is an
Okay.
amazing documentary about
Really
the
good.
Sherman Brothers, Robert and Richard, and it was done by their sons who didn't really know
Hmm.
each other because their dads were not close. And the funny thing is, like, these songs are all written by what seems like people who are like
Very tight.
the Anderson Lopez's, people who are tight. But these
Hmm.
are not. Like, these guys were kind of at
Right.
odds, and it's amazing that they were able to make as much amazing music, from It's a Small World to Chitty Chitty Bang Bang to Jungle Book and all of those things. But the funny part about this to me is that the one song that is the most, I wouldn't even say it, the biggest deal about this movie is The Bare Necessities, and
Hmm.
it's not written by them. They didn't write that one.
Nope.
That's the
Nope.
crazy part, because it was the only song that held over from the original version of this movie that Disney was making. And apparently everyone who had
Yes.
been working on the movie was just so enamored by this song that they didn't want to let it go. And the author Gilkyson, I think was his last name. It's
Hmm.
Gilkyson. Wrote this, and it fits all of the rest of them so very well. But it's the one that we all remember. I remember, like, my elementary school music teacher teaching us this song, because I was like, "What's a prickly pear? What are we talking about here?" Like, I don't know. So yeah, I mean, but the music. What's your favorite song from this one?
Oh, it has to be. Well, I don't know. I like them all, honestly. I like probably Bare Necessities is number one, and then Be Like You would be number two. But yeah, I mean they're all great and they're all iconic. I am going to say it.
Ah, yeah, so I'm looking through. So Trust in Me, That's What Friends Are For, My Own Home. I couldn't have told you for all the
Hmm.
money in the world that song was called My Own Home, because I would have told you it was called I Will Go to Fetch the Water. Because,
Oh,
like,
okay.
that's just like the whole "what are you going to do, I don't know, what are you going to do" moment has seeped into our lives.
Hmm.
So has the "I will go to fetch the water" anytime someone's going to get water. It just seems like that's like a thing that we would do. But My Own Home, and then when I listen to it in this, that's what it is. It's My Own Home.
Yeah.
That's What Friends Are For, Trust in Me, My Own Home, I Want to Be Like You, Ooh Ooh, The Bare Necessities, and Colonel Hathi's March. One, two,
Mhm.
three, four. Pick it up. Just so good. like all this music, and again, the sing-alongs. Did you ever have the sing-alongs when you were a kid? Those videos that are like just going from one to the other, and like probably had
Mhm.
Mary Poppins on it. Um,
Mhm.
those sing-alongs, definitely. I remember the bare necessities being the big one. Working at the Disney store when I worked there, that one was on all the time. So,
I'm sure. Well, I also feel like
uh,
it's very integral to the movie because it helps to develop and mature Baloo. Because when they first meet, I mean, Bagheera says this is that jungle bum. He's like living off the land. He's not really, has any responsibility or anything. And he's teaching Mowgli how to do that. He's like, hey, just come be like me, and we can just have the bare necessities, and we don't have to really worry about anything. But that's how you are introduced to the character, and then you see his progression, his development throughout the story.
yeah. I mean, this like again like Baloo and his devotion to saving Mowgli and jumping into this
Mm-hmm.
village to or the ancient area, this ancient city to save him. And then he and Bagheera both get black eyes. I was almost going to ask you like which eye was which. Like that was the trivia question. It's just such a weird thing for him to like for the two of them to have
Mm-hmm.
like these black eyes.
Yes. So good.
Um, so again, it's a lot of different vignettes. He meets Baloo and he bonds with Baloo, and then the monkeys take him away, and then Louie wants him to teach him to do fire, and he's like, I don't know how to do fire. So obviously, we're foreshadowing the future when he does have his showdown with Shere Khan, and they do fire. That's another part in the animation that I thought, the fire, like
Yeah.
it wasn't great. It wasn't great.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that there's that vignette of the monkey village, and then there's the scene where Bagheera and Baloo are talking, and he's like giving him the heart, like the real story of like, to save this kid we got to get him to the man village, and so then he's got to do this mean thing, which I always think of Harry and the Hendersons. Did you ever watch that movie, the dumbest movie with John Lithgow and Bigfoot? You know what I'm
I
talking
think I've
about,
seen it
right?
before. Yes.
And
Yes, I
they're
do.
like, they realize he's got to go back to the village or back to the woods, and they're like, get out of here, we
Woods.
don't want you, and then they're crying.
Mm-hmm.
Like that sort of felt like this whole thing, like, oh, come on, kid, like, I got to get rid of you and take you back to the village because it's for your own good. Here's another scene though, which looks beautiful. Like I love this.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Absolutely.
so, yeah. So he realizes he's got to take him back, and then Mowgli runs away again, as kids are prone to do, and he's like, I can take care of myself. I can live here. And then okay. So he gets out to where these vultures are, and it's like he went from the first part of the Lion King to the last part of the Lion King in one trip.
All
You know what I'm saying?
right.
Like
Yes.
like the jungle is so lush here,
Lush.
and then
Mm-hmm.
like 20 steps away it's like this arid wasteland with vultures in it, and like how like
Mm-hmm.
what like how where it's like foggy and misty, and like did you pay attention to that at all? Like I
Desolate.
know that it sets a tone, but it's just like that.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, I've never been to India, so maybe it's similar.
I've never been to India. uh Okay, so anyway, the birds help him. Mowgli helps him. I mean, Baloo helps him, and they beat Shere Khan, and he runs away with
Mm-hmm.
Man's Red Fire, which again looks like something like people did in Photoshop. Maybe I don't know. Um, sorry. This was they did a lot of great stuff here. Um, so they get rid of him, and then we think Baloo's dead, which is one of the saddest moments ever. Is when we think Baloo
Yes.
is dead there, and then again they turn it around and make it a comedy moment. But that's the Disney moment in this one for me. That's the goosebumps
Mm-hmm.
and the the kind of
Mm-hmm.
elation is that you've taken us to the lowest point where you've made us love this character, and we think he's gone, and he's okay. Spoiler alert, by the way.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, I'm thinking about the most recent Lilo and Stitch. Like, you killed Stitch. Like, what are you doing? The entire theater is crying. And that same kind of thing here, but it's that sacrificial love, and that's what Walt is so great about. And so if you go back through all of those old movies, you see those characters being able to sacrifice themselves for somebody else. And in fact, Bagheera quotes the Bible. He quotes John 15:13 here, and he says that, no greater love than that man has than this, the lay his life down for a friend. And he's trying to comfort Mowgli. He's trying to tell him it's going to be okay. And then he wakes up and he's like, oh, he's hilarious. He's cracking me up with all of this. So, which is just, like you said, totally a
And
wonderful Disney moment to lighten the
yeah, and then
load.
Baloo's like, "No, stop! Keep going, man! Like, keep talking about what a great guy I am." And it's like, "Oh, you're okay, yay!" And it's all happy and peppy. And then almost instantly after this moment, almost instantly, here comes the girl.
Okay, so here's the thing about that. They did not have an ending. They had, like you said, they had all these little vignettes, and they had, how they wanted the characters to interact with each other, but they had no ending. They're like, how do we get him into the village? And somebody suggested, why don't we have the girl sort of entice him in? And initially, one of the artists, he was like, that is not appropriate. We should not do that. But
But
then
see,
he figured it out.
that's what I'm saying is like it feels weird because he's 10.
Mhm.
We just established that he's 10, and
I,
he's like,
I always took it.
"Whoa."
She's cute, right? Absolutely, she's cute, and opposite sex and everything. It's that little boy's kind of interested, but I will say I think it has more to do with the fact that she's a human, and he's grown up around all these animals, and he's like,
I don't know.
oh, she looks
No,
like
no,
me.
no, no,
You don't think
no,
so?
no, no, no. And she's doing the blinking and like all this stuff and
Coquettish.
rubbing her hair and like, and then she's like doing the like, well,
Yeah.
are you gonna come back to the village or what? It's not just that. If it was just some like little boy there, I don't think he would have been like, oh, like this like
That's
sneer thing he
true.
does with his
Oh,
nose.
the eyes. Yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And you can't tell me it's just because it was a human. That's not at all how this is
I
portrayed.
try.
You could try, but it's not. And it's like he's like, oh no, you don't want to. Like Baloo's like, you don't want. There's nothing but trouble. And I'm thinking this is definitely 1967. Like this is definitely the vibe we have here. I will go to fetch the water, and someday I'm gonna grow up, and I'm gonna have a daughter, and she will go to fetch the water, and it's like, family values 101, 1967. This is exactly
Exactly.
the thing. And so then, of course, in his, being a very, uh, you know, gentlemanly, he comes and picks up the the pot and fills it with water and then decides to carry it for her. But I love the line where Blue's like, "Hey, she did that on purpose." It's like, you think?
Of course.
I just thought that. I mean, I get it. It makes sense when you say that they didn't really have an ending or a way to get him into the village, and so they're like, okay, we'll lure him into the village. But like this part was like, hey, she did that on purpose. Like, and
Vigor's like,
Bagheera
oh,
knows what's
that's the
up.
way of life. Yeah.
Yep, Bagheera knows what's up, and he's like, I'm gonna take a closer look. He's like, nah, you don't want to do that. And Bagheera's like, oh, he just wants to take a closer look because he knows what's happening here. And but she's like, no, it's not. It's you can't convince me otherwise. It was definitely, and so he has that point where he's looking back at this friend that he thought was dead, that he thought what he had was mourning him 18 seconds ago, and he's
Yeah.
like trying to bring him back, and then he's then Bagheera's like, nah, go, and he's like torn, and then she kind of gives him one last look, and then walks in. He's like, oh, I'm going with her.
Yeah. See y'all later. Thanks for saving my life.
Yep. The end.
Hmm.
And that's literally the end of that movie. So they don't name her in that, but there is a sequel to this movie called The Jungle Book 2. And in that one, they do name her, and I can't remember. Shanti is her name.
Okay.
So they give her a name in that. But again, I don't know because it's been a long time since I've seen Jungle Book 2, which was a direct to DVD. It wasn't and maybe even VHS. It wasn't something that hit the theaters. But when that happened, is that what a honeypot is? By the way, is that
I mean, yes.
okay?
I think
All
so.
right. So but so they had the sequel, and in it he goes back into into the jungle, and she goes after him, and so she like finds parts of his world at that point, that where he comes from. But the other question I didn't ask, and it's because I didn't have an answer myself, is that do all of these animals exist in the jungle together? Because there's at one point where Shere Khan is like hunting a deer. And I'm like, are there
Right.
deer in the jungle? Or vultures? Maybe, yes, but hippos and, I mean, not hippos, but like elephants I get, tigers I
Elephants.
get, bears? Are there bears?
There
Okay.
actually are Asian bears that, and they're not as big as they portray Baloo here. They're probably Mowgli size or smaller, but they do have these very long claws on their hands. Like he's talking about, you don't pick the prickly pear with the paw. When you use the pear, you pick the pear, you try to use the claw. And that's a real thing. That's because they have these long claws on their hands, and they can open up the fruit easier because it does have spikes on it. So they do exist. I don't know how, like in what region that they all exist, if they are all together or if they're in separate regions. But the panther, the big cats, they're actually like jaguars, I guess, but they are around for sure. And it doesn't surprise me that he says he knows about the man village, because a lot of them go into the human popularized areas so that they can get like the food and the scraps and things like that from them. And it can be a problem, those big
Well,
cats.
that's why I was showing the "oh, pet that dog" video with the bear, which
Exactly.
again is so,
That's not
yeah,
a dog.
that's not a dog. And I don't know how you are as a parent, but if you listen to them, you're like, "What are you doing?" They're like, "No, he's sleeping." What? He's right there. What
Yeah,
are you talking like?
exactly.
What kind of advice are you giving him? Maybe I would give the same advice in if a bear had walked up and my kid wanted to pet that bear. But anyway, yeah. So all right, so that's the movie. I before we get into final thoughts on this, I did want to kind of talk about some of the extraneous content that came after the fact. So obviously, this was 1967. Tailspin. Did you love
Oh
Tailspin?
yes,
Oh,
I
oh, oh, oh,
did.
oh,
I
oh, oh.
loved,
oh.
yes, all of those.
Part of the Disney
Iconic.
afternoon. Yeah. Son of a nutcracker. Part of the Disney afternoon, 1990. If you go to Disney Plus, it lists it as one season, 63 episodes, which I don't think is
Oh my
accurate.
gosh.
Then that was 1990. So 67 to 90, we didn't really have any, and other people may have done them, just kind of like other people did Snow White movies. There were a couple other random Jungle Book, Mowgli movies out there, but Tailspin was 1990, so 67, 1990. Then 1994, we had that Jason Scott Lee Jungle Book, which apparently was more accurate or more closely knitted into the original Rudyard Kipling. And then was Jungle Cubs in 1996. Do you remember Jungle
Do not
Cubs?
remember that.
That was just
No.
all of them as babies. It was like the Muppet Baby era. So, um,
Okay.
so Jungle Cubs was 21 episodes in 1996. 1998 was that Mowgli story that I showed you earlier, and then Jungle Book 2, that direct to DVD, didn't come out until 2003, and then of course in 2016,
Okay.
Jon Favreau did the live action Jungle
Mm,
Book, which was beautiful. It was a beautiful movie.
yes,
It's considered to be one of the better live action adaptations.
I would
There is a
agree.
lot of shot for shot remake stuff in it, but not as much as we see in Lion King, because I feel like Lion
Right.
King was a waste of all of our time. And I very
Right.
very rarely say that about a piece of content, but that one was just
Hmm.
unnecessary. I felt like, because they didn't add
Yeah,
anything, they didn't change anything. Now Mufasa, that brought, I think, more to the
definitely.
table. That one is
Right.
better, and maybe again something we should review. But that live action Lion King,
Hmm.
no, thank you. And when this Jungle Book one came out, it just was really good, and to the point where there's been a sequel in production,
Hmm.
or like in development, I guess, for a long time. But obviously, he's been preoccupied with Grogu and the Mandalorian. So
Right.
who knows if we'll ever see that. So that's a lot of content around this. So you would think a lot of content. There's probably a lot in the Disney parks that has to do. No,
Nope.
No, there's not. You can't meet Mowgli, which I get. He's in a diaper. That's a thing that
Okay.
probably doesn't make sense to do. I mean, we meet
Well,
Tarzan.
I was gonna just about to say we had Tarzan. Yeah, what do you
Yeah.
mean?
But that's more of a guy. This is supposed to be a kid, maybe. I
Adult.
don't know.
Yeah, that's probably true.
But you can usually meet Baloo and King Louie. They rotate through
Yes.
where you see them, where you can find them. But I don't really think that there's any others that you meet in the parks. There was a Colonel Hattie that I saw in some other park, maybe Paris, somewhere else. But here, the only ones that I know of are Baloo. And and Louis, no Bagheera, because I guess except in that very last
Well,
scene, he
share
never walks
common.
on 2 feet.
Right. That's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah, and so there's that. There was a show at the Animal Kingdom a long time ago when the park first opened. When the park first opened, it was called Journey into the Jungle Book, and it was at the Theater in the Wild before
Hmm.
Tarzan Rocks, which then
Hmm.
Tarzan Rocks closed. They enclosed the theater and they made it the Nemo show that we have a version of now. And then before the Rivers of Light was ready, it wasn't ready yet.
Hmm.
So rather than open it up as like part of Rivers of Light or Rivers of Light Light, they opened it up as the Jungle Book Alive with Magic, which I saw,
Hmm.
which was horrible.
Oh no.
Now I also saw it in the rain, so there's that. But when I ask AI like what things are there, they mention the Jungle Cruise as one of them. Now there is a joke in the Jungle Cruise where they look at a book and they say that's the Jungle Book,
Right.
but there's
Hmm.
nothing else about that is anywhere. I feel like any of these iconic movies should have a dark ride. Period.
Absolutely. Because here's
Jungle
the
Book.
thing, Disney. Yeah, everybody
Yeah.
loves a dark ride. It doesn't have to be for kids, it's for adults too. I mean, think about Alice in Wonderland over at Disneyland or Peter Pan, anywhere you go. People are in line. I mean, those lines are the longest queues that you have. So absolutely every iconic, sorry, every original story should have a dark ride. I completely agree.
Yeah, and I've said this about 101 Dalmatians is that there's so much IP within 101 Dalmatians because there was 101 Dalmatian Street, there was another TV show, there was the live action 101, 102, there's the Cruella movie, there's the Patch's London Adventure.
Right.
There's so much IP around 101 Dalmatians, and like they basically get a wing of all-star movies and that's it. And so I feel like there needs to be for these movies that are so much a fabric of the Disney company. There should be a dark ride for the Jungle Book. There should be a now. Don't make one for Strange World. I get it. That's fine. But
Mhm.
do them for these earlier movies. I feel like
Well,
101 Dalmatians should have something like that. And I feel like we should continue to get 101 Dalmatians content that's more than Cruella. There's supposed to be a Cruella too, but
Well, don't you think that that would fit into villains land? I mean, just go with me here because again, you're going to have like a Maleficent dragon roller coaster and this kind of thing, but Cruella is one of the bigger villains that people
she's in
love
the
to
show.
see.
She's
She's
in
in
the
the
show.
show. So, exactly.
Yeah.
So, why not have a dark ride based off of that film with her kind of as the center, almost like a Snow White Scary Adventure, how it
Hmm.
was mainly just a scary ride the whole time. But you
Yeah.
do that from the perspective of you're the dogs, and that could work for kids.
I agree. I love it. Let's make it happen. As a matter of fact, there's a big gold dome at Epcot that has nothing in it right now. Let's do it over there. Let's do a scavenger hunt to
Exactly.
try to go around London to find the puppies. Let's do something.
There you
But
go.
I'm looking into chat and Fire Chief said weren't wasn't Jungle Book part of Kite Tales? Yeah, that's true because there was a
It
Baloo
was
and a King
the
Louie,
balloon kite or whatever.
the kite.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
Um, yeah. So again, I just feel like this is something that needs more love in the parks, and it seems like it's always a cool IP. I don't know a lot of people are like, the Jungle Book. I'm not really, but I mean, and obviously the movie did really well. The John Favreau did enough so that they were considering more than enough that they gave him the reins to the Lion King. So I would like to see more engagement with these because really all we see in the 2020s is Pixar. We see a lot of Pixar,
Right.
which is
Absolutely.
fine because that's what kids love. And the parks are not for me; they're for families, they're for everybody. But if I got a vote in any way of this situation, I would want there to be more of the classics
Yes,
and
for
the classic
sure.
Disney movies because
Mhm.
it's Disney. Like Cars was Cars may have been the first movie that was released after Disney did the merger or before. I can't remember which. And so
Okay.
that one doesn't really like Toy Story doesn't necessarily seem like it's a Disney movie because it was when Pixar was just using them for distribution. And yet
Hmm.
we have Toy Story everywhere. So obviously they know something, right? I assume that. I assume that Disney knows what they're doing, Stephanie. I do. I assume they know
Um,
what they're doing. Sure they know what they're doing, but maybe not. Maybe they could use a hint here and there, and
yeah.
maybe they will listen at some point. But why isn't there an Aladdin dark ride?
Right. I've always thought that. And you're going to stick, magic flying carpets or whatever in the middle of Adventureland, which doesn't even really fit in Adventureland. But okay, you still put it there. That's fine. You could do an Agrabah, dark ride kind of thing, in one of those areas too. I don't know. I feel like they are missing out on some of that.
I said I feel like Disney knows what they're doing, and Dawn said, "Do they though?"
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, we believe.
Yes.
We believe in Josh. We trust. All right. Thank you guys so much for being with us. I think we've covered everything we need to cover on this movie. We're ready to move into the final Jeopardy round of this. I want to say a big thank you to everyone who's with us in the chat. We love having you guys hang out with us in the chat. I see a whole bunch of folks: David, Dawn, Fire Chief. I saw Ronald in there earlier, and David. I'm starting to repeat myself here, but thank you guys. I see Alicia was with us as well. Thank you guys for being with us, and big shout out to the pack. We love our pack, the Park Adventurers Club. That is our group, our community. If you want to join our Patreon, it's patreon.com/go pack. PAC, go PAC, go pack. I feel like I always have to say that because there's no K. So go pack.
Oh,
Yeah, if you join our pack, at some levels you will get a sticker and a button because we want to share the love with everybody. If you join at the highest level, who knows what'll happen. But I do know that people who are in our zebra and our treasure room level, we want to give them a shout out here: Jungle Cruiser, Rosita, William, Monica, Michael, Jay Ware, Alicia, Rob, Vince, Jordan, Sienna, Bucky, and Egg663. Thank you guys for supporting the channel, for supporting us, and all this content that we're trying to put out for you. Just leave us a comment. Let us know what kind of stuff that you would like us to review. Let us know what you think of this movie, any of that kind of stuff. But please join us Friday night. I'm going to be doing a haul because I have a lot of stuff. I have a lot of popcorn buckets and all this stuff that I want to show to people. So Friday night at 8 p.m. I'll be doing a live haul, and then Monday or Sunday night we're going to be doing another Park Adventurers Club. That is our park show at 8:30. Hopefully you'll join us then. And Stephanie has got, in a couple weeks, she's coming up with another one of her Castaways episodes, which is always a lot of fun hearing from the people who make the magic. So Stephanie, thanks for bringing that show to the channel. You can catch a couple episodes here at parkadventuresclub.com. Business out of the way. Stephanie, now is the time. Now is the best time because now I have to ask you if people are flipping through Disney Plus and they find the Jungle Book and they're like, "Hey, Stephanie, I was thinking about watching the Jungle Book." Your first question back is going to be, "Which one?" But if
right.
they're like, "Oh, I'm thinking about watching the animated movie," then the question before you is, "Would you recommend this movie?"
Absolutely. It is a quick watch. Like you said, it's only 120 minutes or so. It is a continual story that you will not get bored with. It definitely moves, it flows, it has a good rhythm to it. But more than that, you see the characters and you fall in love with the characters. You see their energy, you see their personality come out. And what I love, and if you have time to watch it, the documentary of Frank and Ollie, and those animators are like brothers. They're not brothers, but they're best friends. And they put so much, I think they animated almost everything with Baloo and maybe Bagheera and Mowgli as well. And they have that it just infiltrates into this film, and I love that. So watch that documentary, watch this movie. And I will say one more thing, when Walt passed away, they were still doing animating this film, and it had not come out yet. And so there was a quote by his nurse, and she said at the when she actually watched the movie, and at the end, Bagheera and Baloo walk, like we said, into the beautiful sunset. She said that was like what happened with Walt. He just said goodbye and walked on into the sunset. And I thought that was a beautiful little story about that. So I would 100% two thumbs up.
Wow, that's a hard thing to follow when you talk about Walt like riding off into the sunset. I'm going to say that I would also recommend this one because it does hold up. That's the thing, is that there are some movies that you watch them and you're like, this doesn't really hold up because, you want your kids to watch it because you want them to share the same passions, especially when it comes to something like Disney that we're all very passionate about. You want them to share those same passions. And I think if you set them down in front of this movie, they will enjoy it and they may want to see more. But if you don't know about this movie, then you don't really know about Tailspin and Disney Afternoon, and you don't really know about these scenes that you see projected in, on the castle or other places where they show this IP very briefly. I wish there was more of this IP in the parks. I feel like it deserves more than it has. It has a lot of space that it takes up on Disney Plus. It feels like that it should mirror that in the parks. That's just my opinion. But we would love to hear from you. Go ahead and let us know in the comments below after this what you think. What did this movie mean to you? When did you watch it? It could have just been yesterday. That's fine. But we would love to get your opinions on it. But Stephanie, thank you for doing this with me and for choosing this one. I appreciate it. I can't wait to see what you choose next. We're going to do next Wednesday night. We're going to be doing Zombies 2, complete departure from what we're doing here because Zombies 4 is coming out. We want to talk about that one. And then the week after that, my buddy Charlie's coming on, and we are going to be talking about the Fantastic Four that originally came out with Jessica Alba and Julian, who passed away just last week, who played Doctor Doom, and then also Chris Evans as Johnny Storm, because you can't have enough Chris Evans in your life. So. But anyway, thank you, Stephanie, for being here. Appreciate it. Y'all have a great week, and we will see you next time. Uh-oh. I needed to be pretty. You ready? Okay. We'll see you next time.